Black veterinarian saves injured animal, community hails her hero. The howling wind carried the sound of screeching tires, followed by a sickening thud. Dr. Amara Johnson's head snapped up from her paperwork, eyes widening as she rushed to the window of her small veterinary clinic. Through the rain-streaked glass, she could see a crowd gathering on the road outside Pinewood's most affluent neighborhood. Without hesitation, she grabbed her emergency kit and ran. "Please move." "I'm a veterinarian," Amara called, pushing through the growing circle of onlookers. Their faces turned to her with expressions ranging from relief to skepticism. In the center lay a golden retriever, whimpering softly, its golden fur matted with blood and rain. "Who are you?" demanded a tall man in an expensive raincoat, his voice sharp with accusation. "Don't touch that dog. We've called animal control." Amara looked up, rain streaming down her face, her dark skin glistening under the streetlights. "I'm Dr. Johnson. I run the clinic down the street," she said firmly, already assessing the dog's injuries. "This animal needs immediate attention or it might not survive." A woman stepped forward, shielding her young daughter's eyes. "How do we know you're really a vet? Do you have identification?" The dog whimpered again, more weakly this time. Amara met the woman's gaze, a silent moral challenge passing between them. Who gets to be trusted in a crisis? Who is believed to be a hero without question? "Every second we waste is one this dog doesn't have," Amara said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "You can help me save a life right now, or you can wait and watch one slip away. Your choice." The crowd's murmurs grew, uncertainty hanging in the air as heavy as the rain. The injured animal's eyes locked with Amara's, filled with pain and a desperate plea for help that transcended all human barriers. In that moment, Amara knew this wasn't just about saving an animal. It was about who we choose to see as saviors, who we allow to be heroes, and what prejudices determine those choices in the critical moments when life hangs in the balance. 6 months earlier, Dr. Amara Johnson stood in the empty storefront that would soon become Pinewood's newest veterinary clinic. Sunlight streamed through the dusty windows, illuminating floating particles and the dreams she'd carried from veterinary school to this moment. "It needs work," said Riley Barnes, the real estate agent, glancing nervously at his watch. "But the rent is reasonable, especially for this part of town." "It's perfect," Amara said, turning slowly to take in the space. At 32, after years of working for others, she was finally creating something of her own. "I can see it already. Exam rooms there, reception here, and a surgery suite in the back." Riley shifted uncomfortably. "Look, Dr. Johnson, I should mention, Pinewood has certain expectations. The clientele in this area is particular." Amara stopped her mental planning and faced him directly. "Particular about what exactly?" "Just traditional." Riley avoided eye contact. "The previous businesses here catered to a certain demographic. Your clinic might face some adjustment period." "My medical credentials don't have a demographic, Mr. Barnes," Amara replied coolly. "And neither does an animal's need for care." That conversation replayed in Amara's mind as she spent the next weeks transforming the space into Paws and Claws Veterinary Clinic. Her savings dwindled as she purchased equipment, hired Alina Rodriguez as her veterinary technician and Sophie Chen as her receptionist. "You sure about this location?" Alina asked one evening as they assembled shelving. "My cousin tried to open a business on this side of town last year. The welcome wasn't exactly warm." "Animals don't care what their doctor looks like," Amara replied, tightening a bolt with perhaps more force than necessary. "And I'm not going to let someone else's narrow-mindedness determine where I build my dream." The clinic's opening day arrived with little fanfare. Amara stood behind the newly installed reception desk, adjusting and readjusting brochures while Sophie organized patient files. "Maybe we should have done more advertising," Sophie suggested, glancing at the empty waiting room. "Word of mouth is better anyway," Amara assured her, though anxiety twisted in her stomach. The morning crept by without a single client until the bell above the door finally chimed. Margaret Winters entered, clutching a carrier containing an elderly Siamese cat. Her eyes widened slightly upon seeing Amara, but desperation won out over whatever surprise or hesitation she felt. "My Mr. Whiskers isn't eating," she explained hurriedly. "Our regular vet is on vacation, and the other clinic is booked solid." "Let's take a look," Amara said, leading them to an exam room without acknowledging the unspoken subtext. As she carefully examined the dehydrated cat, her gentle hands and confident manner seemed to ease Margaret's tension. 45 minutes later, Margaret was leaving with medication for Mr. Whisker's kidney condition and a follow-up appointment. "You have a wonderful touch with animals, Dr. Johnson," she admitted almost reluctantly. "Mr. Whiskers never lets strangers handle him that easily." Animals sense intention, Amara replied with a smile. Thank you for trusting us with his care. The first week brought a trickle of emergency cases, people who couldn't get appointments elsewhere or whose pets couldn't wait. By the second week, Margaret had sent her bridge club friends, though they arrived with visible apprehension that only dissolved after experiencing Amara's expertise firsthand. Then came the Hendersons and their German shepherd, Kaiser. We've heard good things, Richard Henderson said stiffly, his wife Vanessa hovering protectively near their dog. Though we've been with Dr. Miller for years. Dr. Miller is excellent, Amara acknowledged, knowing the older veterinarian who had barely acknowledged her arrival in town. What brings Kaiser in today? As Amara diagnosed a simple ear infection, Vanessa Henderson watched with narrowed eyes. Where did you study veterinary medicine exactly? Cornell, Amara answered without looking up from her examination. And you practiced where before this? 5 years at North Shore Animal Hospital in Chicago, then 3 as a senior veterinarian at Metropolitan Veterinary Center, Amara said evenly, used to these interrogations masquerading as casual conversation. Was Vanessa's only response. A week later, Sheriff Tom Cooper came in with his bloodhound, Rusty. Unlike most new clients, he made direct eye contact and offered a genuine smile. Heard good things about you, Doc, he said, his weathered face crinkling at the corners. Rusty here's got a limp I can't figure out. As Amara examined the friendly bloodhound, she felt Sheriff Cooper studying her rather than his dog. Town treating you all right? He asked suddenly. Amara looked up, surprised by the direct question. I'm staying busy, she answered diplomatically. That's not what I asked. His eyes were kind but knowing. Pinewood can be set in its ways, change comes slow here. I've noticed, Amara admitted, but I didn't open this clinic for an easy welcome. I opened it because every community deserves quality veterinary care. Sheriff Cooper nodded appreciatively. Well, for what it's worth, Rusty and I are glad you're here, and I'll make sure folks know it. By the end of the first month, Amara had established a small but growing client base. Then came the incident with Mayor Peterson's prized show cat. She won't eat, won't drink, the mayor's wife explained frantically over the phone. Dr. Miller is at a conference, and Precious has a show this weekend. When the Petersons arrived, their disdain was palpable. Mayor James Peterson barely acknowledged Amara, speaking instead to Alina while his wife clutched the carrier containing their Persian cat. We're only here because it's an emergency, he said loudly enough for Amara to hear. I'm not even sure she has the experience for a cat of Precious caliber. Amara maintained her professionalism, carefully examining the lethargic cat while explaining each step to the anxious owners. Her suspicions were confirmed when an X-ray revealed a hairball obstruction requiring immediate surgery. Absolutely not, Mayor Peterson declared. We'll drive to the emergency hospital in Riverside. That's an hour away, Amara warned. Precious is severely dehydrated and in pain. Any delay increases the risk. We'd prefer a more established veterinarian, Mrs. Peterson said, avoiding Amara's eyes. Amara took a deep breath. Mr. Mayor, I understand your concern. If you'd like to call Dr. Miller for a reference about my surgical skills, please do. But your cat needs immediate treatment, and I am fully qualified to provide it. The mayor hesitated, then made the call. After a terse conversation, he reluctantly agreed to the surgery. 3 hours later, a successful operation behind her, Amara presented the relieved Petersons with a recovering Precious and the hairball that had nearly taken their cat's life. She'll need follow-up care, Amara explained, handing them detailed instructions. But she should make a full recovery in time for her show. Thank you, Mrs. Peterson said quietly, actual gratitude in her voice for the first time. The mayor nodded stiffly. You'll send the bill to my office. Of course, Amara replied. And Mayor Peterson, your cat received excellent care today because she needed it. That's all that matters to me. After they left, Alina whistled low. That was something. Think they'll be back? Probably not by choice, Amara said with a tired smile. But maybe they'll stop warning people away from us. What Amara didn't expect was the call from local newspaper editor Diane Williams the next day, requesting an interview about the new veterinarian who saved the mayor's prize-winning cat. By early spring, Paws and Claws had settled into a rhythm. The newspaper article had brought curious clients, and Amara's consistent care kept them coming back. Still, there were daily reminders that not everyone welcomed her presence in Pinewood. Anonymous comments appeared on the clinic's social media pages, questioning her qualifications. Occasionally, potential clients would walk in, see her, and suddenly remember urgent appointments elsewhere. The neighboring businesses remained coolly polite but never welcoming. Don't let them get to you, Sophie advised one afternoon after an elderly man had demanded to see the real doctor upon meeting Amara. I don't, Amara insisted, though each incident left tiny cracks in her resolve. As long as we're helping animals, the rest is just noise. But the noise grew louder when construction began on the vacant lot beside her clinic. Developer Marcus Reynolds was building luxury condominiums, and suddenly the small parking lot Amara shared with other businesses became a battleground. Your clients are taking up too many spaces, complained the owner of the upscale boutique next door. And those barking dogs are disturbing our customers. We're entitled to our share of the lot, Amara countered, and we make every effort to keep noise to a minimum. The tensions escalated when construction vehicles began using the entire lot, leaving no spaces for Amara's clients. When she confronted the foreman, he shrugged dismissively. Take it up with Mr. Reynolds. We've got his permission. Amara tried scheduling a meeting with Reynolds for weeks without success. Meanwhile, her client numbers dwindled as parking became impossible. Sheriff Cooper stopped by one afternoon, finding Amara sitting dejectedly at the reception desk during what should have been a busy time. Heard you're having some trouble, he said without preamble. Nothing I can't handle, Amara replied automatically. Sometimes handling it alone isn't the smartest play, he observed, glancing around the empty waiting room. Reynolds is at the Rotary Club meeting tonight. Might be a good place to catch him, 7 p.m. at the community center. That evening, Amara entered the community center meeting room, immediately feeling the conversation dim as heads turned toward her. She spotted Reynolds at the front, deep in conversation with Mayor Peterson. Dr. Johnson, the Rotary Club president called, genuine surprise in his voice. Are you here to give a presentation? Actually, I was hoping to speak briefly with Mr. Reynolds about the parking situation affecting my clinic, Amara explained, aware of all eyes on her. Reynolds hardly looked up. My office handles scheduling. Call my secretary. I've been trying for 3 weeks, Amara said evenly despite her rising frustration. The construction vehicles are preventing my clients from accessing veterinary care. Perhaps this isn't the appropriate venue, Mayor Peterson interjected smoothly. When is the appropriate venue, Mr. Mayor? Amara asked, her patience fraying. When my business fails because no one can park, when animals don't receive care because of construction that could easily accommodate both needs. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Young lady, Reynolds said finally, his tone condescending, development is progress. Progress sometimes has casualties. Perhaps your clinic would be better suited to another part of town. The implication hung heavy in the air. Amara felt heat rising to her face but kept her voice steady. My clinic serves all of Pinewood's pets, Mr. Reynolds, including those in your new condominiums. I'm simply asking for reasonable accommodation during construction. I'll have someone look into it, Reynolds said dismissively, already turning away. As Amara left, humiliation burning in her chest, she heard footsteps behind her. To her surprise, it was Vanessa Henderson. That was handled poorly, Vanessa said stiffly. Reynolds is a bully. Thank you for saying so, Amara replied, surprised by the unexpected alliance. Vanessa hesitated. Kaiser's ear infection hasn't returned. Your treatment was effective. Another pause. Richard and I are on the Neighborhood Association board. Perhaps we could discuss the parking issue there. It wasn't friendship or even warm acceptance, but it was a crack in the wall Amara had been pushing against for months. The next morning, Alina arrived at the clinic with news. Have you seen this? She asked, holding up her phone. On the screen was a community Facebook page where Reynolds had posted about the confrontation, describing Amara as aggressive and unprofessional. The comments section had exploded with thinly veiled racist remarks about her being not a good fit for the neighborhood. I should have expected this, Amara said, a familiar heaviness settling in her chest. Nothing stays professional when you're the only black business owner in the district. But as she scrolled further, she saw something unexpected. Between the negative comments were defenders, clients whose pets she had treated, Sheriff Cooper, even Richard Henderson arguing that the parking issue was legitimate regardless of who raised it. Maybe you're not as alone as you thought, Alina suggested quietly. That afternoon, an official from the city arrived to discuss construction zone modifications. Within days, signs reserved a portion of the lot for clinic parking, and the foreman grudgingly instructed his workers to respect the boundaries. It was a small victory, but it fueled Amara's determination. She expanded her outreach, offering free vaccination clinics for low-income pet owners and educational programs at local schools. Some doors remained closed to her, but others began to open. Then came the day when 12-year-old Tyler Matthews rushed into the clinic, cradling a tiny kitten he'd found abandoned near the construction site. "Please, Dr. Johnson," he begged, tears streaming down his freckled face. "She's really sick." The kitten was indeed critical, dehydrated, malnourished, with an infected wound on her leg. As Amara worked to stabilize the tiny creature, Tyler watched with wide, worried eyes. "Will she make it?" he asked, his voice small. "I'm going to do everything I can," Amara promised, not wanting to give false hope. "What made you bring her here? The shelter is closer to where you found her." "My mom says you're the best," Tyler said simply. "She said you fixed Mayor Peterson's cat when nobody thought you could, and you don't charge extra for emergencies like Dr. Miller." The simple faith in the boy's eyes moved something deep in Amara's heart. This, she remembered, was why she became a veterinarian, not for acceptance or approval, but for moments like this. Against the odds, the kitten survived the night. By morning, she was weekly lapping at formula. Amara named her Phoenix. Tyler visited daily, his initial shyness giving way to eager questions about veterinary medicine. When his mother came to pick him up one evening, Amara recognized her as the cashier from the grocery store she frequented. "I can't thank you enough," Lisa Matthews said, watching her son gently stroking the recovering kitten. "And I can't pay you much either, I'm afraid." "We'll work something out," Amara assured her. "Tyler's help has been valuable. He wants to be a vet now," Lisa said with a small smile. "Never seen him so focused on anything." An idea began forming in Amara's mind. "Would you consider letting him volunteer here after school? We could use the help and he could learn about animal care." And so began the Paws and Claws Junior Volunteer Program. Tyler brought friends, and soon Amara was hosting weekly veterinary science classes for middle schoolers. Children, she discovered, cared far less about the color of her skin than the knowledge she shared and the animals she saved. Parents who had initially avoided her clinic began to reconsider as their children came home bubbling with excitement about what they'd learned from Dr. Johnson. The invisible barriers didn't disappear, but they began to thin. Phoenix grew stronger each day, becoming the clinic's unofficial mascot. Her recovery symbolized something important to Amara: resilience in the face of overwhelming odds and the power of care to transform lives. Summer arrived with unprecedented heat, bringing a wave of heat-related pet emergencies. Amara and her team worked exhausting hours, treating everything from heat stroke to burned paw pads. "We need to do something proactive," Amara declared after treating her fifth overheated dog in 2 days. "People don't realize how quickly this heat can become dangerous for pets." She organized a community education campaign, distributing flyers about pet heat safety and offering discounted cooling mats and portable water bowls. The initiative caught the attention of the local news station, resulting in a featured segment on pet summer safety with Amara as the expert. The exposure brought new clients, including some from Pinewood's most exclusive neighborhoods who had previously avoided her clinic. Among them was Marcus Reynolds' daughter, Caroline, who arrived with an overweight bulldog struggling to breathe in the heat. "Winston's regular vet is booked solid," Caroline explained, not meeting Amara's eyes. "Dad wouldn't approve, but Winston needs help now." As Amara treated the distressed dog, cooling him gradually and administering oxygen, she maintained a professional demeanor despite the awkwardness of the situation. Caroline watched anxiously, her concern for her pet evident. "He's stabilizing," Amara assured her after Winston's breathing eased. "But bulldogs are especially vulnerable to heat. He needs lifestyle changes to prevent this from happening again." Caroline nodded, absorbing Amara's advice about weight management and exercise modifications. As she prepared to leave with a recovered Winston, she hesitated. "I saw what my father wrote about you online," she said finally. "It wasn't fair or true." "Thank you for saying that," Amara replied simply. "He's not, he doesn't." Caroline struggled for words. "Our family has always gone to Dr. Miller. Change is hard for my father." "Change is hard for everyone," Amara acknowledged, "but sometimes necessary." The conversation lingered in Amara's mind that evening as she closed the clinic. Had she made any real progress in changing minds, or was she still just the emergency option when convenience demanded it? Her contemplation was interrupted by the clinic phone. It was Sheriff Cooper, his voice urgent. "There's been a fire at the animal shelter," he explained rapidly. "Nothing suspicious, just an old AC unit that sparked, but they're evacuating all the animals and need somewhere to take them." "Bring them here," Amara said without hesitation. "How many?" 28 dogs, 40-some cats, and a couple of rabbits. It's a lot, Doc." "We'll make it work. I'm calling in my team now." Within an hour, the clinic had transformed into an emergency shelter. Elena and Sophie arrived immediately, followed by Tyler and several other junior volunteers. Word spread through the community, and soon a stream of people arrived with crates, blankets, and pet food. To Amara's surprise, Margaret Winters was among them, organizing donations with brisk efficiency. "Animals don't care about neighborhood politics," she declared when Amara thanked her. "And neither should we in an emergency." The night progressed in a blur of activity as animals arrived in various states of distress. Amara triaged them quickly, treating smoke inhalation and minor burns while directing volunteers. Around midnight, Mayor Peterson appeared at the door looking uncharacteristically disheveled. "Dr. Johnson," he acknowledged with a nod. "The city appreciates your assistance in this crisis." "We're happy to help," Amara replied, too busy for pleasantries as she administered oxygen to an elderly cat. The mayor watched her work for a moment. Can the city provide any additional resources?" Amara glanced around at the crowded clinic. "We need more space. The community center would be ideal, central location, air conditioning, multiple rooms." "Consider it done," the mayor said, already reaching for his phone. "I'll have it opened and staffed within the hour." By dawn, the operation had moved to the community center, with Amara coordinating veterinary care while community volunteers managed feeding and comfort for the displaced animals. The crisis had created an unexpected unity, with people from all parts of Pinewood working together. The shelter director, a harried woman named Janet, pulled Amara aside as things finally stabilized. "I can't thank you enough," she said, her voice hoarse from smoke and exhaustion. "You saved our animals when you had every reason not to help." "What do you mean?" Amara asked, genuinely confused. "The shelter board voted against your proposal last month," Janet explained. "The outreach program for low-income pet owners. Reynolds is on the board. He convinced them your clinic was trying to take over shelter operations." The revelation stung, but Amara shook her head. "That doesn't matter now. The animals needed help, period." As the community center filled with morning light, Amara surveyed the impromptu shelter. Volunteers from every neighborhood and background worked together, the usual social divisions temporarily forgotten in service to a common cause. Tyler approached, gently holding Phoenix, who had come along to the center. "Dr. Johnson, people are asking how they can help after today. Mrs. Henderson suggested a fundraiser for the shelter rebuilding." The crisis continued for 3 days, with Amara catching sleep in brief stretches between treating animals and coordinating care. The community response grew rather than diminished, with restaurants donating meals for volunteers and local businesses offering supplies. On the 3rd day, Caroline Reynolds arrived with her father in tow. Marcus Reynolds looked uncomfortable as he approached Amara. "Dr. Johnson," he began stiffly. "Caroline insisted I come see what you've accomplished here." Amara, too tired for pretense, simply nodded. "We've had incredible community support." "Yes, well," Reynolds cleared his throat. "The Reynolds Foundation would like to contribute to the Shelter Rebuilding Fund, and I may have been hasty in my assessment of your clinic's place in the neighborhood." It wasn't an apology, but it was an acknowledgement. Amara accepted it with the same professionalism she'd maintained throughout their adversarial relationship. "The animals don't care who helps them, Mr. Reynolds. Just that someone does." As the shelter crisis subsided and the animals were relocated to temporary facilities in neighboring towns, Amara found herself at the center of a community transformed not completely, not perfectly, but meaningfully. The experience had created connections that transcended the invisible boundaries that had previously defined Pinewood. When she finally returned to her regular clinic operations, a bouquet of flowers waited on the reception desk with a card signed by dozens of community members. "Thank you for showing us what it means to serve without condition." The golden retriever's whimper brought Amara back to the present moment, kneeling in the rain beside the injured animal as onlookers watched with uncertainty. "Please," she said again, looking up at the crowd. "This dog needs immediate care." A young girl pushed forward. "That's Buddy," she exclaimed. "He's Mr. Wilson's dog. He got out when the gate broke." An older man stepped forward, recognition dawning on his face. "You're the vet who helped during the shelter fire. Let her work, for God's sake." The atmosphere shifted perceptibly as people began to recognize her. Hands reached out to help shield the injured dog from the rain. Someone offered a clean towel. "My car is right there," Amara said, pointing to her vehicle. "I need help moving him carefully." Several people immediately volunteered, following her instructions to create a makeshift stretcher from a raincoat. As they gently lifted the injured retriever, Amara heard murmurs of encouragement, not just for the dog, but for her. At the clinic, Elena was waiting, alerted by a call from Sheriff Cooper, who had heard about the accident on his radio. Together, they rushed the golden retriever into surgery. The waiting room filled with concerned onlookers, some who had been at the accident scene, others who'd heard about it through Pinewood's rapid small-town communication network. Among them was Marcus Reynolds, who had been driving by when he saw the commotion. "Will Buddy be okay?" asked the young girl who had identified the dog, her eyes wide with worry. "Dr. Johnson is the best," Tyler assured her with the confidence of experience. "If anyone can help Buddy, she can." 2 hours later, Amara emerged from surgery exhausted but smiling. "Buddy has a broken leg and some internal bruising, but he's going to recover," she announced to the waiting crowd. A collective sigh of relief filled the room, followed by spontaneous applause. Amara blinked in surprise at the reaction. "You've saved another one of our own, Doc," Sheriff Cooper said, clapping her on the shoulder. "Just doing my job," she replied automatically. "No," Caroline Reynolds countered quietly. "You're doing more than a job, you're showing us who we can be." Later that evening, as Amara completed Buddy's charts, a knock came at the clinic door. It was Mr. Wilson, the dog's owner, an elderly man she'd never met before. "They told me what you did," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Rushing out in the storm, fighting to help him when others wanted to wait. Thank you isn't enough." "Buddy's going to need careful monitoring," Amara explained, leading him to where the sedated dog rested comfortably. "But he should make a full recovery." Mr. Wilson stroked his pet's head gently. "I've lived in Pinewood my whole life," he said after a moment. "Seen it change in some ways, stay stubbornly the same in others." He looked up at her with rheumy eyes. "It's better with you here, braver, kinder." The simple acknowledgement touched Amara deeply. Not because she needed validation, but because it recognized a truth she'd always believed. That service could bridge divides that arguments never could. The next morning's local paper carried the headline, "Local Vet's Roadside Rescue Saves Beloved Pet." The article, written by Diane Williams, detailed not just the previous day's events, but Amara's journey in Pinewood, the challenges she'd faced, the barriers she'd overcome, and the community she'd helped build. As Amara read it in the quiet of her office before opening hours, Phoenix purring on her lap, she reflected on the winding path that had led to this moment. The clinic was thriving now, with a diverse client base from all parts of town. The junior volunteer program had expanded to include mentorships for teenagers interested in veterinary careers. Even the neighboring businesses had grown friendly, with the boutique owner occasionally bringing in her chihuahua for checkups. Change had come to Pinewood, not in a dramatic revolution, but in small, persistent acts of care and connection. Amara had never set out to be a community hero or a catalyst for social change. She'd simply wanted to be a veterinarian who served all animals equally. Yet in holding true to that purpose despite resistance, she had demonstrated something powerful to a town in need of evolution. Her phone buzzed with a message from Sheriff Cooper. "Town Council approved your proposal for the low-income pet healthcare program. Unanimous vote." Amara smiled, scratching Phoenix behind the ears as the cat stretched contentedly. The program would ensure that no pet in Pinewood went without necessary care due to financial constraints. It was the fulfillment of a vision she'd held since first deciding to become a veterinarian. Elena arrived early, carrying coffee and pastries. "Saw the article," she said, placing a cup on Amara's desk. "Town hero now, huh?" "Hardly," Amara laughed. "Just doing what needed doing." "Sometimes that's exactly what makes a hero," Elena pointed out. "Not the grand gestures, but showing up consistently when it matters." As they prepared to open for the day, Amara gazed out at Pinewood, the morning light catching on dewdrops and illuminating the town in a gentle glow. The community wasn't perfect, prejudice and resistance to change still existed in corners, but progress was undeniable. Her journey had taught her that transformation rarely came from confrontation alone. It came from excellence that couldn't be denied, from service that transcended boundaries, and from the quiet persistence of showing up day after day, offering the best of oneself despite the obstacles. The clinic door opened, bringing the first client of the day, a new resident with a cat carrier and an anxious expression. "Welcome to Paws and Claws," Amara greeted them warmly. "How can we help?" If you found meaning in Amara's journey, please consider subscribing to Pacific Stories for more narratives that explore the complex realities of human connection and growth. Your support helps us continue creating stories that challenge perspectives and inspire positive change. Every experience shapes us, just as every challenge Amara faced transformed both her and her community. How have you witnessed small acts of excellence and service create change in your own community? Share your reflections in the comments below. Remember that heroes rarely announce themselves with grandeur. They simply show up consistently, offering their gifts when needed most. Sometimes the most powerful revolutions happen one heart at a time, one connection at a time, one act of service at a time.